let's talk about booth inventory and the presentation of your booth. So, I can't account for every single what-if scenario, so bear with me. For all intents and purposes, I'm going to walk you through all of the supplies and tools that you should have at your fingertips to be very successful throughout your shift. Please keep in mind though, if you do not have one of these non-critical items, the festival is not going to burn to the ground. We're going to walk you through what to do. First things first, take inventory. I'm first going to talk about the supplies that should already be at the table when you get there that are provided from the festival. And then we'll talk about the products provided by the brand you're pouring for. So, festival supplies. Depending on where you're stationed throughout the festival, you're going to work with one of three critical tools. If you're pouring beer, you're going to have a beer bottle opener. If you're pouring wine, you're going to have a wine key or a wine opener. Also, with wine, you're going to have a calibrated pour spout. If you're pouring spirits or liquor, we'll address that in a second, but essentially, all you need is liquor in hand and a designated cup for spirits. In addition to those key tools you'll be working with when you get to your booth, you should have the following already there for you. A bus tub filled with ice, which you're going to live out of for most of your shift. You're going to have one or the other type of water carafe vessel that is going to be used for rinse water and an associated dump bucket. You should also have paper towel to clean up messes, which you'll have to do. And you'll have a garbage can that should live ideally next to your table, halfway between you and the guest. And very importantly, a ticket pouch. We'll talk about this shortly. Now, let's talk about the actual product you're going to be pouring. When you get to your booth, it should already be stocked on top with an initial supply of the brand you're pouring. In addition to that, you'll find extra products stocked either below your table or behind your table. My recommendation, figure out all of the different brands you're pouring and then organize all of that extra stock because it's going to help you grab it and go as your night gets busy. In addition to the product, you're going to have an important piece of information that complements that product. First, it's going to be a placard, a table tent, a little sign that says the product name and how many tickets it costs. Additionally, if you're one of the lucky few, the brand you're representing should also provide information sheets that describe the product. Read those sheets. If you're double lucky, you'll have a brand rep or a distributor by your side. Introduce yourself, remember their name, and ask them to brain dump everything about what you're pouring to you so that you can speak intelligently about what you're pouring. If all else fails, Google it. Look up the product. What you want to know at the very least is the name of what you're pouring, the style of what you're pouring, 2 to 3 words to describe its flavor profile, and its alcohol strength, most of which can easily be found on the container itself. If that doesn't work out based on what you're pouring, again, Google it. That's why you have your phone on you, not for Snapchatting. Then, as your shift goes on, pay attention to what's moving the fastest, essentially what's more popular and what's not so much, because the guests are going to ask you, so what's popular? They're also going to ask you, what's your favorite? 2 different questions that require 2 different responses. If by chance you're under the legal drinking age and don't know what they taste like, be honest, they're not going to hold it against you. But if you've looked up the product, if you have familiarized yourself with what you're pouring, you should be able to tell the guest very easily, very quickly, beer A is the most popular, but you know what? Beer B is actually my favorite. In addition to the products you're pouring, you may or may not get to a table that is either decorated and set up with props and additional signage, free swag, and collateral that you can give away, or you're going to get up to a pretty boring naked booth. Either way, you're going to have to make do with what you have, but at the very least, you want to make sure at all times your booth is organized, neat, and where you need it to be to serve effectively. Now, we'll talk about that. Next, let's talk about your booth's presentation. But first, I want to mention, if by any chance you get to your booth and you're missing a non-critical tool or piece of information, you're going to have to adapt, be creative, and problem solve. If, for example, you don't have a dump bucket, don't freak out. The festival isn't going to burn to the ground. You know why? Because your neighbor to your right or to your left probably has one. Borrow it. At all times, you want to keep as much product stocked and, when applicable, on ice as possible. But if throughout any duration of your shift or when you arrive, if your product is not already neatly organized and it looks more like this, you're going to want to clean it up. And I'm going to show you how to stock it so that it is neat and looks really sharp to the guest. That means labels facing out. So, by style, I recommend organizing everything in columns, just like this. What is not going to work is if you very daintily just put your product on the ice. It needs to be in the ice to properly chill to a proper serving temperature. My recommendation, only keep one can or bottle per style open at all times. And that one should be the one that is closest to you, because every time you remove one, open it, and pour it, and once it's empty and stored away, you're going to want to replenish it and then move everything back closer to you. As your product is stocked and as you're organizing everything, particularly in the ice, or whether or not it's set up in the display adjacent to the ice, it's a small detail, but it's an important one. Make sure all of your labels are what we call facing out to the guest. In addition to them asking you what's most popular, what's your favorite, they're most commonly going to ask you, what are you pouring? Because they haven't read anything that is already on the table, and the best indicator of what you're pouring is actually what you're pouring. And for them to know that, they've got to be able to read the labels. So if everything is all sorts of cattywampus, fix it. Create an attractive experience for the guest. A little bit more than what I'm doing right now. Whether we're talking about beer, wine, or spirits, my recommendation would be to only open one bottle or one can of one style at a time. It prevents waste and it allows you to keep the rest of the product as cold as possible for as long as it needs to before you have to open the next one. Pro tip: open the container that's closest to you. When that container pours off and is empty, you then can rotate everything closer to you and put a fresh can or bottle in the ice. That way, everything is chilling for as long as possible. In addition to the product you're pouring directly in front of you, you want to make sure everything else is comfortably within arm's reach. Let's talk about the rinse water and the dump bucket. So as guests approach you, they may not want the rest of the product that is either currently in their glass or was last in their glass. And they're going to want to rinse. If cool, do it for them. They can also do it for themselves, but you don't want to have the water, which you're going to have to grab a dozen times throughout the night, way away from you. If you're right-handed, keep that stuff very close to you so you can grab their glass, rinse their glass, dump their glass, and then immediately go right into pouring into their glass. If there's a mess, and there will be many, clean it up. And a mess looks like this. And it also is going to look like this: a random glass, a random cup, and some random crap that is just going to constantly show up on your table throughout your shift. Make it go away. It's as simple as picking it up, 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 and throwing it away. Take care of your space, make it and keep it presentable at all times. Lastly, as far as maintaining a clean, neat, and organized booth, you're going to be emptying product throughout the night. Whether it's a can of beer, a bottle of wine, or a bottle of spirits. Once it's empty, make that stuff go away too. You're going to have empty boxes behind you as you're continually stocking product throughout the night, so use those boxes as storage for your empties. So once you've emptied a bottle, 2 or 3, take it off the table and make that stuff go away. Now, your booth and your table are still as neat, clean, and organized as they should be.